Yay.
Hey guys, it's Doc, and today we're talking about, instead of a current theme park or something along those lines, talking about something kind of lost. I play with a lot of lost places and lost, romanticism, if you will, in some of my art and so on. And part of that comes, I think, from having been to some pretty cool places when I was a little kid, including Fort Dells. Fort Dells was a theme park in the Wisconsin Dells, which is a kind of a whole theme park town, tourist trap town that's been set up around these beautiful rock formations in the Wisconsin River and so on. And Fort Dells opened in 1959 and was kind of Wisconsin Dells' answer to Frontierland in Disneyland. However, I also see some influence there in general with Knott's Berry Farm and things like that. So anyway, Fort Dells opened up 1959, and it had basically that kind of frontier town, old westy vibe thing, and it started off with an awesome little train that rode around the park, just like the Disneyland layout. And just like the Disneyland layout, it had a river through the center that had kind of a steamboat, in its own little way. It wasn't chintzy, but it was definitely not the budget of Disneyland. And Black Bart was a cowboy that several times a day would rob the bank, and he'd run out, and then the kids could arrest him after he'd been shot by the local sheriff, and they would all trudge him up to the jail and put him in jail. And I got to do that at like age 3 or 4, which was pretty cool and fun, and I still remember that to this day. Dude, they had a suspension bridge and a secret cave and a dark ride and a mine tour, and the train went through this mine area, but the suspension bridge and so on, that's kind of Tom Sawyer Island. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more to this, to the thought process of this theme park than just a Frontierland ripoff. However, that front gate does look pretty Frontierland, but, forts looked relatively the same, at least according to movies, so The park also had a haunted house, and it had antique cars, a complete antique car ride, which, you can see some of the video of me riding in the antique car ride, and the stagecoach that they had, and for some reason I was blonde when I was a little kid. I don't know what happened. I was cuter too. So anyway, and it had shops, and it had like a lot of things from the 1950s up through especially into the 70s and 80s, and especially at the Wisconsin Dells. It centered a lot around a part of the park that was Indian land, or interplay with Native American. Well, the Native Americans were central to Wisconsin Dells. They're a part of the culture there. They're a part of the history there. Back in the day, that you could at Knott's Berry Farm, at Disneyland, at Fort Dells, you could watch Native Americans do dances and so on. And they would have kind of a nightly ritual, as I understand it, centered around Stand Rock, which is one of the rock formations, the beautiful rock formations at the Wisconsin Dells that you can see to this day if you take either the boat tour or the Ducks tour, which the Ducks were 1940s World War II amphibious vehicles, and they're still employed to this day in the Wisconsin Dells that take you through both the river and on land, because they're amphibious. That makes sense. Anyway, so Fort Dells has a lot of memories for me, and it was a really neat place. The park was open until about 1985, about the time that the town was really becoming more of a water park central, which is interesting when you think about a state in the Midwest being one of the top water parks in the world, if not the top water park. And, as the water park started to come up, and interest in cowboys and Indians started to fade, Fort Dells saw diminishing returns and eventually tried to change up its act a little bit and become a different gig, but eventually failed. Not everything is gone. at one point they had Totem Tower, which was one of those huge towers that you'll see at like some of the Six Flags parks, where you go up about 350 feet and could see the whole town and the whole park and everything. And that was dismantled and I believe sent somewhere else. I don't know what happened to the antique cars, but I want one desperately. Desperately. There was also the train, and it is not gone. It is still part of another theme park there in Wisconsin Dells, the Safari Park, Timbuktu, I believe it's called, or something along those lines. I'll correct that at some point. Gone, but not entirely forgotten. The space was bulldozed after it kind of sat vacant for a long time. So at one point it was an abandoned theme park, and now it's just a space. However, there's a giant Fort Dells themed McDonald's still there on the property with a nice big sign that says what was once there and so on. So it had a pretty good history. It was Wisconsin Dells' answer to Disneyland's Frontierland, if nothing else. So it was a pretty neat place to stop, and it was great for families. And it was that Cowboys and Indians frontier feel of mid-century America. So anyway, I recommend you check it out. There's plenty of videos online, a couple that I've made, and you can see the entirety of my family's 8mm videos from that place and that time. In the meantime, subscribe. I also do art. I have a Patreon, a couple other things. So check me out. I'm Scott Doc Vaughn, and thanks a lot. This has been Adventures with Doc. Yay.